I've seen just about everything. Seen queens overthrow kings, and straights flushed away. I felt the sweat after every re-raise, and nearly buckled after bad beats. Seen rags lead to riches, and witnessed countless miracles on the river. So if you want to play, take a seat and show me something I haven't seen. We play at FullTiltPoker.com.
This is Diego Cordovez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Welcome to The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. We've had 2 episodes of Phil Hellmuth, and that begets episode 3.
Here we go.
Let's just roll into it. Well, you said something very interesting that I actually hadn't heard before, which is that sometimes when you go off, this is actually a cathartic thing for you, that it actually helps you. Because I see the bigger picture where I think overall it hurts you in different ways, but you're saying that when you take a bad beat, you're vulnerable to tilt, and this might prevent tilt.
To be honest,
subconsciously you may be motivated to do this.
I think what's 100% best for me is if I don't get emotional in the first place, if I can somehow avoid that.
Right.
Getting emotional, I think it's probably better for me to get a little bit out, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's close. It's probably just best. I know it's best for me if I were to just look at poker as just this, you know, and I had this great attitude in 06, and I thought, okay, and I read an article, the poker brat is dead, you know what I mean? I'm like, yes, this image is gone.
And you wrote that article.
No?
No, I'm just kidding.
No, it was a big article.
That was just a joke.
And then in 07, we're filming for something, Poker After Dark, and I just completely lost it, and I'm like, oh God, the poker brat's back.
And that's in a made-for-TV controlled situation.
I mean, but that was a tough situation.
Although, you know what I'll say?
I was at a Sunday night football game in Dallas, scheduled to fly back at halftime, which is kind of crazy. I was in my friend's box. Got word that you know Terrell Owens wanted to hang out that night, and I'm like, all right, maybe I should stay around. You know what I mean? And so we met him at a restaurant later, and I slept and then we went out, and I slept about 3 hours, and then came onto the set, and I was just completely wiped out trying to play Poker After Dark. And so usually when I go off, it has something to do with
Now, just one thing, and
exhaustion.
Then we should probably move on from this issue, because I think. But the only thing I'll say, and this is in your defense, is that you have such a big TV image, and you've become such a personality that sometimes now people that don't even know you at the table are taking shots at you to provoke you.
Now
that's the flip side of the coin. Now, as a champion, you have to learn to deal with that, and you're still going to be held to a higher standard.
That's completely right. But then it gets worse. Then there's those people that are just weird anyway, or they can't handle being at the table with me.
Right.
And then they just, you know, and then they say weird.
Yeah,
I become the focus of the whole table. Then they say weird, inappropriate things, and it gets worse.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I addressed when I'm doing sensitivity training to the floor people. Is I said, look, about 3 or 4 times this month, I'm going to ask you for some protection. You know, forget about it. I mean, I might go off on somebody after they have my chips in their stack, and the whole table's going to love it. You know, it's going to be entertaining, but I'm going to need some protection. I just want you floor people to know that. Mm-hmm. And it does happen. It happens, you know, once
there are
every...
two sides to that coin.
Once every 3 or 4 tournaments, people always are, almost always are inappropriate. If I call it on them, they say, well, who are you to call that on me, or whatever.
Well, this is the bad thing, because we were at a few tables together this last World Series, and people come and they're trying to go to you right off the bat, either to amuse themselves or because they're trying to get you off your game, or
you were there when that really weird guy was there. Let's not go into names.
And people do try to go to you, and
I think
this is the misfortune of what you're what you've built up.
Now, I'm super interested to hear about your philosophy as a coach.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes the great geniuses in a sport or in art, they can't explain how they do what they do. Are you going to be an effective coach for Team Shulman?
I mean, completely. You know, I mean, Jeff look, there is a difference of opinion how much I can help. You know what I mean? Like I think I can make a big difference in how Jeff does, and he thinks it's a smaller difference, but we both recognize that I'm going to help him. And I think the more I've talked to him, the more he thinks I can help him more than he originally thought. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, all right. I mean, there are some people out there, like in golf, that are really great teachers. You know, but look, I have a best-selling book, that just teaches poker strategy. There's a reason it's a best-selling book. It's because I think I'm a very good teacher, because I don't make it boring. You know, so I can teach a point to someone with a story or two where they're entertained and having fun and can still learn. Whereas if you're reading it in like a real dry treatise, you know, it's like, oh God.
You're an effective communicator. Now, Jeff,
effective communicator, and look, no one knows Hold'em. Wow.
Well,
How cocky am I? No one has accomplished anywhere near to
No, that's a fair statement.
Texas Hold'em.
That's a fair statement.
Well, that's the thing. No one would dispute your knowledge and your ability, but you know, communicating what you're doing.
Well, why don't you judge? You were there last night.
We're going to judge.
Diego has a chance right now to judge.
No, we've had one session which I thought was fantastic, which was excellent.
Right.
So I'm
and I introduced a concept that
I'm a big proponent. I'm you know, obviously
I know that
we're you know, doing the devil's
without
advocate,
going into the concept that I introduced to you last night. You know, there were about 5 of them, but there was one key one that everybody seemed to love immediately. And there's no way that anybody thinks of that on their own.
And you know,
and that one concept is going to help him make the final 3.
I think that's the whole question that Adam's asking, which is that, you know, there are brilliant players who have all the concepts inside. You know, articulating them is a different matter. I'll give you an example. Phil Ivey, who is obviously a phenomenal player in all games, in all situations, and you know, because I've known him, sometimes I'll ask him about a hand that I've been involved in, or I'll ask him for advice, and he really wants to, but a lot of times he can't help me because he just had a sense of what he needed to do in that situation, or he'll say, I have to be there to know how I do that, because you know, he's feeding off all this information that is
let me just say this.
Difficult to quantify. So
the mechanics of winning a No Limit Hold'em tournament, that's my specialty in life. That's what I'm best at. I know what to do. Some of the stuff I can't teach a 6th reading sense. You know what I mean? I can't teach that.
When you talk about looking at people's
but the concepts
soul,
of getting down there and putting yourself in position and playing hands a certain way and playing the right kind of hands and playing in the right position, I know all of that stuff cold. And so, am I a great coach? I don't know. You'll have to judge that.
We'll find out.
You thought it was a fantastic session last night. So I will help anybody in the world, any player in the world. I will help their Texas Hold'em. And when it comes to winning tournaments, or when it comes to playing.
But I think you brought up something that I hadn't thought of, which is the process of writing a book makes you take concepts and crystallize them and make them as simple as possible, because that's the only way a book will be effective. So I think that training actually probably has helped you a lot in terms of categorizing your strategies and your thoughts.
I think one of the things that is going to be, that I thought right away would be great about this, is that we're talking about specifically final table strategy. So Jeff's at the final table. You know his chip count. You know who the other players are. So I think that you can be very effective in that situation. How do you think Jeff is as a student? You know, he's pretty tough to deal with, isn't he?
Not really. I mean, I think Jeff has a lot of respect for me.
He does. Yes.
And here's the other thing. Jeff and my philosophies really dovetail well. They really do. And so, you know, teaching him, it's not like I have to start with someone in their 20s who feels like they need to win like this.
And you don't.
And I have to say to them, well, actually, what you need to do to win is this.
In that case, it'd be worse to try to do that. In other words, I really feel like when someone has a style, especially if they get to the final table, they need to keep playing that style. If someone got there by playing super aggressively in a different style, you wouldn't be helping them, because even if you have the right answers, now you're mixing them up. I mean,
yeah, I disagree. I think that I could. I think that, and let's keep aggressive and not aggressive out of the equation, because I don't know how exactly I'm going to coach Jeff, and if I did know, we probably don't want to talk about specific concepts now. But I will say that, you know, I think that I think that someone who got there a certain way, you know, if they continue that strategy, they may force themselves to finish in 8th, 9th, 7th at best. And I think that I can help every one of those players at that table, every one of them, because some things are right. If the guy's super aggressive, you know, I may coach him to continue that.
Right.
All right, but in a little bit different way than he would do it. Maybe put himself a little less.
But I think that
at
goes
risk.
to my point, which is now you're tweaking the way someone's comfortable playing. If you try to recreate someone into a different style, they're going to be discombobulated.
I disagree with you a little bit on that. I mean, I think there's not that many ways to win a Hold'em final table. You know.
Well, see, you know, my thoughts are watching last year. Dennis Phillips came in, chip leader in the whole tournament. He'd been playing a certain way. He was comfortable with it. It may not be the best way, but it's an effective way. Now, in the time between May and November, he's thinking about how to improve the style, but rather than kind of fine-tune it, he starts out the tournament with a whole different style, and he almost went out 9th. And then he kind of reverted, and you know, he ended up
3rd.
You know, winning some key hands, and he ended up 3rd. And now this year,
look, he had
back
ace
and
queen.
he's played really.
He had ace queen against somebody else's kings.
Yeah, he could have gone out 9th place.
Or he finishes like 9th. With
Now
a
this
chip lead.
year, he's come back, and I thought he played very well in the main event. He made another good run, to his credit, and it seemed like.
What are
he
you
was
saying
playing
exactly,
his style.
though? I mean,
I'm saying that in his case, it was a big mistake to, in that
hire
interim.
a coach.
I wouldn't say hire a coach specifically, because hiring a coach in itself doesn't mean anything. Trying to radically change the way you play is a mistake, because even if it's a better way of playing, if you're not comfortable and confident with that style,
I disagree.
you're
I
not
think
gonna be,
if you have
effective.
4 months to radically change your game, you can do that. You know, I mean, sit down. I mean, sit down and play it out and run it out. I don't think you can radically change your game in a week. But if you have 4 months, and but here's the thing that blows my mind is, if you're in the November 9, all right, why wouldn't you get coached? And why wouldn't you have one of the great players coach you?
Oh, I agree with that.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
course.
All of the great players are available to coach the November 9 players. All of us. I mean, we are, because it's fun for us. And, you know, you work in a deal where if they make a lot of money, then you really do well for yourself as well. And so it's kind of a fun opportunity. You have somebody to sweat. You want to be at the final table anyway. So, I mean, I just think that all these players should be out there getting the best players in the world to coach them.
Well, and I think, you know, the sessions we've had so far, an example in the sense that you don't have to accept everything the coach brings up, but it makes you think. And if you use half of it, if you use a quarter of it, if you use 3/4 of it, whatever it is, it's going to help. And even if you don't use any of it, the process of discussing concepts and ideas is going to be very valuable, as opposed to just sticking in whatever rut you're in.
And let me say this. I mean, Diego, I think of you as being a pretty terrific Hold'em player.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that I really do. And I've told you this before. And I feel like you and I talking about concepts with Jeff listening. If I tell Jeff that I think he should do this, and he doesn't think, just give me your counter reasoning. You know what I mean? And then if it makes sense, it may come down to, that's just not my style. That's okay.
Right.
Then we move on to the next point.
Right. But that itself is super valuable.
Exactly, it's super valuable. I'm coaching Jeff to do something, a couple of things that are a little bit radically different for him. You're agreeing with what I'm saying, and I think he's agreeing, and I think the world's going to be a little bit surprised when he comes out.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. It's been a lot of fun with Phil Hellmuth. We have to just work on getting him to talk a little more.
Straighten him out a little more.
And look for us next week on Card Player TV, and write to us at The Scoop at cardplayer.com.
I see you. Your eyes. Your hands. Your chips. Everything. So I don't need to see your cards. We play at fulltiltpoker.com.